This video is an introduction to disadvantages or disads, what they are, and what some of the components might be. So the first thing to look at is what is a disad. A disad or a disadvantage is what it sounds like, a disadvantage to the affirmative, or some problem that will result as an effect of the affirmative going into place. And there are a number of different types of disads. We're not going to delve into the specifics of what some of those might look like in this video, but we'll talk more about the structure of these and some of the underlying trends. But the main thing to keep in mind is that it's a consequentialist argument, or something about the end state of the affirmative, that it causes some bad effect, and as a result should be rejected. So, for example, if I were to make the argument that, as alluded to in some earlier videos, let's say someone had an idea to go to a restaurant. A disadvantage would be kind of a string of events that might result from that, or even just one or two that would render that a bad thing. So, for example, a disadvantage might claim that going to a restaurant is that I'll end up spending a lot of money, and that me consistently going to restaurants will make me lose a lot of money and maybe just end up, I don't know, losing my ability to pay off my bills. Or maybe going to a restaurant will make me gain weight. It's as simple as that. It's just some bad effect that is caused as a result. So the next thing is then, what parts does this have? And I'll contextualize this to the example that was just given. The first is uniqueness. This is by far the most confusing part, so bear with me for a second, but uniqueness refers to what the status quo has that is currently fine. So by that I mean that to win any type of offense, you need to control uniqueness, i.e., the negative who is defending in this case, most likely the status quo, has to win the status quo as something that is desirable. So in the case of this, let's say the disadvantage about losing a bunch of money when you go to a restaurant. The uniqueness would need to say that you are not currently spending a bunch of money, or that your budget is currently balanced. Otherwise, if you were to claim that going to a restaurant will end up hurting your budget and making you not be able to pay your bills, if you weren't even on a balanced budget in the status quo, then there'd be no reason why the affirmative would be a problem, because the status quo has the same types of problems. See, for the negative to win a disadvantage, they have to win in essence the status quo is fine, so that your budget is currently okay. The link is just the question of what the affirmative does that is bad. So, for example, the affirmative would cost a bunch of money by going to a restaurant. It's as simple as that. What does the affirmative do that is bad? The internal link is what connects the link to the impact. So this will establish kind of the next step in that chain. So why does me spending a bunch of money at a restaurant matter? Well, maybe it's several $100s, and if I spend several $100s, I will end up going over my budget. And the impact is, why is that bad? Me going over my budget means maybe I lose my home, can't pay my bills, etc. So in essence, the overall narrative is, look, the budget is fine now, but going to this restaurant will cost me several $100s. That is enough to make it so I can't pay my bills. That's a big frowny face. Another analogy you can use to think of it is someone standing on the edge of a cliff. So uniqueness would say Joe is on the edge of the cliff, but he has not fallen over the cliff yet. He is fine. Maybe he's very close to the edge, but he has not fallen off. The link is someone pushes him. The internal link is the cliff is really far from the ground, and the impact is maybe he dies on landing. So I think that kind of illustrates the idea that when someone is, there are several different things that connect this to make it one cohesive story, and you need each one of those four parts to be able to successfully piece that story together in a way that makes sense and concludes the affirmative is a bad idea.